little bit flashing everyone.
Am I flashing everyone?
I don't know.
I'm flashing. Not really sure. Wearing a skirt.
Just like let go and put it up. Yeah, that's fine.
Welcome to Train Freediving. You're on the sofa with Sarah and Nathan, and this is my competition training vlog number 4. So for the last couple of weeks, we've actually been quite far ahead of where I am in my goals and my objectives for the competition, which is now 5 weeks away. So we took the opportunity the last couple of sessions just to have a bit of a fun play around in the water. Coach allowed me to do a little bit like what I wanted, so that was nice. So today was the first kind of, I'd say, proper training session in a few weeks. And what did we get up to, Coach?
Yeah, so today I had her do what I like your standard competition warm-up. So 1 minute static plus 40-ish, 45 meter dynamic, and like I want you to do that basically every single session to start, so that when you do get to competition and you do that warm-up, it's like 100% automatic, and then your body and mind switch straight into diving mode exactly how you want it to be, and it feels like a normal routine thing. Then after that, the first exercise was just 1 repetition of a 30-second static plus 90 meter dynamic. So this is the second time you've done that particular dive, and for me it's just a way to expose you to a longer dive time. So it's a breath hold that's more similar to like 135, 140 meters depending on your particular speed. But because we're only swimming 90, it saves the legs, it saves your body, it's not so demanding, and then considering that you just went to the gym and did some squats.
Yeah, I was going to say save my legs, but a couple of days ago I decided to go and do some squats in the gym and did a few too many reps, so I've been struggling to kind of walk downstairs and just generally like sit down. So today, as you can imagine, trying to fin for 90 meters or even 40 meters, to be honest, was quite hard going, and my legs were totally dead, but we did it.
Yeah, so normally I wouldn't recommend anyone out there pushing themselves in the gym, killing their legs this close to competition. But I think with Sarah, like we've said in the first vlog that we did, she has a back injury. So maintaining strength and doing this type of strength training is very important to keep her body fit enough to fin. But then in cases like today, it was a much safer option to do the 30-second static plus 90 than it would have been to do 120 or 130, where that might have completely trashed your legs and your technique would have been kind of crap.
I think I would have sunk. I think I would have sunk if I tried to do more than 90 today. Yeah. So yeah, once we did that, and altogether that felt actually really nice today, apart from the fact that my legs were very dead. So I don't normally suffer from lactic in those sorts of dives, but today, pretty much from push off, my legs were dead. So I was like turning at 30 and just really kind of trying to keep my legs up. And then, so after we'd done that exercise, we went on to one of my not so favourite but very necessary training exercises, which was...
Yeah, so I had you do hypoxic training, O2 table, which was 6 times 30 meter FRC sprints. So not really sprint, but more like, let's say 85%, 90% of your maximum speed. And then between each lap, you were going to do 4 breath recovery after the first lap, then 6 breath, and then 8 breaths. But I did make a last minute modification just based on the way that you were looking. You got noticeably hypoxic much earlier than we both expected. You were having blue lips. The recovery breathing wasn't as calm as it normally would be. So I made the modification to only do 5 laps with 4, 6, 8 recovery breaths instead of 6 laps.
Yeah, so you made that modification in the first set, but I was also supposed to do a second set. So you cancelled the second set, and you said only do really 5 reps in the first set and not 6 sets. Now when I came up and you told me not to continue and not to do the next one, I felt a little bit bummed, and I wondered whether I'd kind of like failed the exercise by not being able to do as many reps or as many sets. But you were very reassuring, and I was quite surprised actually, I guess, by what you said, and I just wondered if you could share that with everyone.
Yeah, so basically what I said to you is that I don't really care what you actually do in the training. I just care if we get the right outcome. So in this exercise in particular, it's supposed to be a hypoxic conditioning. You're supposed to get slightly blue lips. You're supposed to feel a bit of lactic acid in the legs. And compared to the last time you did it, maybe when you were feeling much more fresh, you hadn't gone to the gym, the first set was like a warm-up set just to get you used to FRC, and then the second set was the one that we were actually able to achieve hypoxia. In today's workout, because of probably going to the gym, her muscles were recovering, there was already like a physical deficit before the session, so that meant that you were able to achieve hypoxia on the first set with higher recovery breaths than I normally thought, on less laps than I predicted. But to me, that doesn't matter, because the purpose of the exercise was to become hypoxic. And the fact is, because you were tired, you were able to become hypoxic with much less effort and much less work than if you were fresh.
So what does that mean, I guess, longer term? So if I was able to, as you say, achieve the outcome of hypoxia on one set and not two sets, what does that mean in terms of my adaptation or longer term? Because I guess in the Western world, you know, we get into this mindset of like more is better. And so I'm thinking, well, I didn't do two sets, therefore, like, I'm not where I need to be, and I'm going to fail, and I get in my head and I get nervous about doing the competition. But what you're saying is that that doesn't really matter. Like, as long as I'm achieving the hypoxic result now, you're saying that I'll make that adaptation, and more isn't necessarily better. Is that right?
Yeah, it's like, I would say in any exercise, but in this case we're talking specifically about hypoxia. The thing that causes physical and mental adaptations to hypoxia is becoming hypoxic. It doesn't matter if you do 500 laps, but you don't become hypoxic on any of them, then you cannot create adaptations to hypoxia because there was no hypoxia to adapt to. Then if you do 2 laps and become hypoxic on both of them, that's the outcome, or like that's the desired outcome of the exercise. We're creating the right stimulus, which is the hypoxia, and then the adaptations happen automatically to the stimulus. Okay.
So if, for instance, today we had done that second set, what could have been the result of doing that? Would I have created more adaptation if I'd pushed myself to do it, or what would have happened?
I think so. Potentially, you could have created more adaptation, but the likelihood is, and I would say this mostly comes down to my experience working with you as an athlete, is that I know how much training you're capable of doing. I know what you look like when you're on the edge of being too tired. And in this case, I felt that if you did another one, you would have become more hypoxic, but the amount of fatigue we would have generated would have meant that instead of adapting before your next training session, you would have still been recovering. So it's like the body and the mind only have a certain amount of energy that they can spend on adaptation. If you create too much of a deficit by doing too much training, then all of that energy is only able to be spent on recovering back to where you were and not recovering to higher than you were. Gotcha. So in this case, I felt the best thing for you was to just stop the training there, accept that we got hypoxic early because of all those other factors, and then take advantage of that. You didn't have to do a second set, you didn't have to do extra training, you were able to stop early and get the same quality work done as if compared to, let's say, normal, where you would have had to do the second set.
Yeah, so I'm glad that you did call it and we only did one set, because that first set was pretty challenging today with the fatigue that I already had from the gym, and also I just have felt quite tired this week anyway, so I think it was the right move. And for me as well, when I'm doing a training set like that and I start to get a strong urge to breathe, which is what happened in this set, it just makes me really rageful. I get really angry, kind of like a crocodile. I want to thrash around like, ah! And I felt so mad. And I get like super mad and then I want to cry. So if you experience that too, I'd love to know. Makes me laugh. So anyway, once I came up and he said, we're not going to do the last lap and you're not going to do the second set, I was pretty grateful, because otherwise I think I would have been like snapping his head off like an actual crocodile.
Yeah.
So yeah, altogether, I think that worked out well today, and we've got around 5 weeks left, I think I said, to the competition now, and I would say this week I've had pre-competition nerves and occasionally doubted my capabilities to go the distance in the competition, but that happens, it's not uncommon for me, and I'm sure next week I'll feel very differently. But if you do feel like that, it's just natural, and don't let that put you off doing it, actually doing a competition, because as long as you're doing the training and you're dedicating time to your practice, you will build up the capabilities and the confidence to achieve what you want to do. But just, I guess, be patient with yourself, and that's words that I need to hear. Yeah. Anyway, so I'll be patient with myself and you be patient with yourself.
I think just to add on to the feeling competition nerves 4 or 5, maybe even 6 weeks before the competition, I think like that is something that's actually relatively normal and relatively expected, and like I feel it when I'm preparing for a comp. I know you feel it when you're preparing for a comp, and I think a lot of I'm sure most of you who've competed or who will compete will feel this way. And I think something that we need to remind ourselves, particularly if we're competing, is that the way we feel in training and the performances we're doing in training, and if we have any nerves or any of those kind of things this far before the comp, doesn't actually matter. If you're competing, all that matters is the quality of the dive you do in the competition. So these training dives in advance, it's actually good if you're a bit nervous. It's good if you're maybe a little bit uncomfortable, or not uncomfortable, but like if they don't necessarily fully go to plan, or if you feel this stress, or if you have to stop a training session early and do less sets. All of this is just good information for you and your coach to help them decide, okay, what's the next step? What's the next thing we have to do to best prepare for the comp? And it's exposing you to that feeling so that when you are in competition, and there might be a little bit of elevated competition nerves, you know how to handle it. If everything felt 100% perfect all the time in training, nothing ever went off track, or you were never nervous before a long training dive or a long swim or any of these other things, then when you get to comp, that feeling is going to be overwhelming. If you have it in training, maybe it's not enjoyable and you would rather not feel nervous, but it's actually a good thing that you are, because now you know how to handle it.
Wise words, coach. So I think that about wraps it up for today. Again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again in a couple of weeks. Cheers, guys.